morning. It's Crash Connell. Last Thursday in May 30, 2024. And we got a new podcast today. Patrick Wood is back. In Jesus' name. I think it was C.S. Lewis, Mary, that said, if you want a religion that is not easy, I certainly do not recommend Christianity. Feels like that today here. So
yes. Wise words have been spoken.
So the spiritual attacks are real, having some ongoing technical issues, but hopefully we can join Patrick Wood here shortly.
Yeah. It's Thursday, May the 30th. And Patrick Wood is back with us, so we appreciate all of his research going back so many years. And the real value of that is you can grasp the big picture when you talk to someone who has been around a long time and has been doing the research for a long time, and they know the whole story. Because if you were to jump in right now and talk about the news and prophecy, and you had not researched it in the past, it would be completely overwhelming. So we're going to look at some big picture stuff today. But first, my scripture, Psalm 16, 5-8. Lord, you are the portion of my inheritance and my cup. You maintain my lot. The lines have fallen to me in pleasant places. Yes, I have a good inheritance. I will bless the Lord who has given me counsel. My heart also instructs me in the night seasons. I have set the Lord always before me because he is at my right hand. I shall not be moved. Let's pray this morning. Oh, Lord, you have indeed promised us a great inheritance, and we look forward to that day. Lord, help us keep our eyes on the prize. Help us to order our steps with eternity in mind. Father, we lift up those who are suffering physically, they're struggling with circumstances, or they just need some refreshment in their soul. Lord, draw them close to you. Use us to encourage and refresh according to your Spirit. I want to lift up Patrick to you and ask for continued grace and opportunities to educate and warn about our world at large, about those things that might ensnare us and, heaven forbid, lead us from the right path. We thank you for his gifts and his labors for you over a long time. Bless his loved ones. Continue to provide for him in all things. In Jesus' name, amen. Patrick Wood, author, lecturer, economist. He's a leading and critical expert on sustainable development, the green economy, Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, technocracy. He is the author of Technocracy, The Hard Road to World Order, Technocracy Rising, the Trojan Horse of Global Transformation, and the Evil Twins of Technocracy and Transhumanism. He is an expert on the elitist Trilateral Commission, their policies, their achievements in creating a self-proclaimed new international economic order, and I think he's been ahead of the curve on technocracy and transhumanism and global everything for many, many years. The site is technocracy.news. It is well worth your time. The content is refreshed often. On Substack, he authors the Quickening Report. Patrick, welcome back to Stand Up for the Truth.
Welcome. Thank you very much, Mary.
Great to have you.
Good to see you.
What's new in your world? There is so much that you can document, and you do so well. What's new with technocracy.news?
Well, I've been, since I had my health issues last year, I've been posting one article a day. I carefully choose it, and I also put quite a bit of commentary at the head of every article. This is proven to be a little bit more pointed now, that I could take that time to analyze these stories more than I did before. I used to post three stories a day, but and that gave me now 6,500 articles or so over the years. It's a lot of articles, right?
It is.
But in any case, the stories that I'm tracking right now are so pointed, and people are starting to get it more now. They're seeing more. They're sensing that the net is enclosing them. So
it is a net, the World Wide Web. It absolutely is.
Yes.
I want to talk economics as we open up here this morning because there's so much going on from, CBDCs are catching on around the world, like dominoes falling. AI applications are multiplying along with the nature of tech. Global elites are gathering to announce their plans for the world, going into captivity, basically. It's a snowball effect, Patrick. And you have an article out there that I want to get to, but I want to do some definitions so that when we talk about this article, people will know what we're talking about. And the article is called Trilateral Commissioner Larry Summers, OpenAI board member, says all labor will be replaced. Let's start with the Trilateral Commission. We have new people listening all the time. What is the Trilateral Commission, and what is the tri in trilateral?
Exactly. That's a great question. The Trilateral Commission was formed in 1973 by David Rockefeller and Zbigniew Brzezinski.
Oh, gee.
And the tri part was referred to Japan, North America, and Europe. That's where the members were chosen from. And they used the name commission. That's crazy because they wanted to think, want us to think that there must be official. Somebody must have made a commission out of this, but it really wasn't. It was just a private organization. And they set out to create a new international economic order that was all over their literature at the time. It was amazing. And I look back to, even now, I see that phrase all over those early documents. And they were the ones who I believe, they provided the genesis of modern globalization. And we see their policies worked out over the years, just everywhere you look.
Wow, I remember in the 1980s when I first got saved and started looking into these things, the Trilateral and the CFR were super secret organizations to the point where I think we were thinking this is just a conspiracy theory. There aren't people out there trying to take over the world. But it is definitely not that, unless you call it a demonic conspiracy, that's for sure. But it's changed a little. Is that correct, that there are a couple of more entities that have joined?
Well, the membership has rolled over, certainly. Okay. Some people have died, like Brzezinski and Rockefeller and Kissinger. He was one of the early members. But they've continually refreshed the membership. And, today we have people, for instance, like Anthony Blinken, for instance.
Wow.
He's a member of the Trilateral Commission, and he's a Secretary of State. They've been able to capture these positions over the years, not for the sake of political power, but rather for economic manipulation. Because America's, let's face it, America's always been the major economic engine of the world.
Yeah.
So when they came for us to get into our political process, they chose only the positions that would aid them in their economic policies. Not always included the Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, things like the U.S. Trade Representative, for instance. The National Security Advisor is always another one that's been occupied.
Well, and my understanding is also that India and South Korea and Southeast Asia are other countries now in the commission, or part of, have there been other national members that have joined?
Well, it's still generally, we could say Asia generally now has a few members from like China and Malaysia or Singapore. But in Europe, it's always been a kind of a smorgasbord.
Okay.
There's two members, I think, from the Arab world now, but it's not a lot. The core is still visible as being from Europe, America, and Japan.
Okay. All right. Well, and they, I read an article recently that says it's called Trilateral Commission calls 2023 year one of the New World Order. So they've made that pronouncement. They had a confab in New Delhi. Retired foreign ministers, ambassadors, CEOs, bankers, and academics gathered at the secretive Trilateral Commission's first global plenary meeting in India. And then it mentions James Baker and Andrew Marshall. He wasn't even on the list of participants, but he's a successor to the defense strategist Andrew Marshall. Is that the Carter or Reagan years? Are those names familiar?
Possibly from the Reagan years.
Okay.
I don't remember. I can't peg it right off, but that could be.
Yeah. These guys have been around for a really long time, especially James Baker.
Yes.
And then Andrew Marshall, he headed up the office for 42 years. Much going on about that. And they say that actually the globalization, there's a whole new market out there. It's not at all what it used to be, that the world has just changed so radically from a free market-based, deflationary based to now it's industrial-based policy. Gee, Patrick, who can keep up with all these tectonic changes?
Yeah, well, when you look at the big picture, it's not hard to figure out what's going on these days.
Right.
And in the beginning, it was all about a resource grab. In other words, grabbing the resources of the world, twisting them out of the hands of nation states and individuals as well. And we've seen this consistently. The consolidation of natural resources into the hands of a few.
Yeah.
And when you look at this kind of as a con job from the beginning, it's not hard to see the players today, and you can see what they're doing as well. But what Rockefeller originally intended, he saw the end of money. It was a mathematical certainty at some point that there would be an end of fiat currency, and he had to have something to take the place of his bank. He's one of the richest bankers in the world. Well, if you have a bank and you just have cash or currencies, whatever, maybe some gold, what are you going to do if that all runs out? You're going to be left high and dry. So they set out originally to capture the resources of the world, because if you have the resources, it really doesn't matter what currency you put on top of it. Right? If you have the gold, the oil, the energy, the timber, the food, etc., because you have the land under your control, really doesn't matter. The game is yours to play.
Wow. Yeah, it takes money to transform the world, and these guys have it. David Rockefeller has had his hands in everything. He was 103 when he died, and the mischief is all I can think of. I got to tell you this, Patrick, this article that I just quoted from 2023, the year one of the New World Order. Well, these people met I want to draw in technology here with you, but as they met together, they asked ChatGPT to write a poem about the Trilateral Commission, and I got a chuckle out of this, and you might too. Here's the poem that ChatGPT wrote about themselves. In secret meetings, you plan and conspire to create a new order of which you aspire. Your goals are unclear, but some see the end as a world government with you as its friend.
There you go.
There you go. Maybe ChatGPT is willing to stand up for the truth in this. I don't know. But I do want to pull in AI to all of this. And I want to ask you about a gentleman named Sam Altman, because technology is really the means to their end game. This is what is facilitating the end game here. It's just astonishing. Who is Sam Altman, Patrick?
Yeah, he's an interesting character, I have to say. I was just talking to him the other day, or about him, from another expert in the field, and we stumbled on our mutual belief that Sam Altman is an absolutely unplugged individual. He's a young guy, obviously. But he's such a technocrat from the get-go. Yeah. And he's moving forward with OpenAI in particular to crash. I want to say to crash the market, but this guy has no safety rails at this point. Right. He just disbanded the ethics board that was kind of controlling the safety mechanisms of AI, and he appointed himself as a head of a new board to do the same thing. It's absolutely inconceivable.
Wow!
But he's driving to be the first person to get what's called AGI. That's general intelligence, artificial, of course.
Yeah.
And he believes that if he can get it first, he basically will rule the world with AI.
Wow.
And what experts were predicting is that whoever gets AGI first likely will use that to get to what's called ASI. That's going to be artificial superintelligence, which will be basically kind of the beast system that is capable of running the entire world, right?
Yeah.
So Altman is just kind of casting all restraints aside at this point.
Yeah.
It's really scary because he's a young guy. He's got a lot of energy. He's not a programmer type though. He's not. He's an entrepreneur more than he is a programmer, and that makes him doubly a threat.
Yeah.
Here's interesting.
Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Here's an interesting thing, however. When he reconstituted the board from last year, when they basically fired him straight off, and then he came back and he dismissed the board altogether, and then he chose a new board. And it's interesting that one of those board members that came in was none other than Larry Summers. Some people will recognize that name, the former president of Harvard. He's an economist. He's been in and out of administrations over the years. And most importantly, he's a longtime member of the Trilateral Commission.
Of course.
He's an economist. This is absolutely stunning to me. But he was brought in by Altman to oversee the board of directors. It's like, where do you get that connection from?
Wow.
This is not a young guy, right?
Wow. Yes, Altman is only in his 30s. And he talks, I went on his website, he talks about tectonic shifts. He said, you think that the smartphone epoch or era was a big deal. He says, we're way overdue for a techie tectonic shift. He's obsessed with being on the cutting edge, like you said. And here's a quote from his page. A good test of an idea is if you can articulate why most people think it's a bad idea, but you understand what makes it good. Yeah, that's a little scary. He's become very wealthy from his startup investments. In your article, Trilateral Commissioner Larry Summers, OpenAI board member, says all labor will be replaced. This is from April 8th. It's at technocracy.news. I really encourage people to read that because it talks about the Summers and Epstein connection. Jeffrey Epstein shares a special connection with one of the most prominent figures at Harvard, and that would be Lawrence Summers. What about what's up with that connection, Patrick?
Yeah, really, and they were great friends. Apparently,
sure they were.
As it turns out,
wow.
They obviously they had dealings with each other, and mostly it was Summers that encouraged Epstein to give money to Harvard. A lot of it, actually.
Okay. Wow. And we talked about did you call it AGI? Yes, AGI. Artificial General Intelligence. Now, this is the AI that writers have used in sci-fi to make a being sentient. And I want to ask you about sentience because as far as I know, and most people say, unless you have a sense of self and you have memories to anchor that, it's an impossibility. What is your thought on, because they're suggesting with AGI, Artificial General Intelligence, that these beings can become sentient, humans. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, never going to happen.
No, right.
Honestly, just for the reasons you said.
Yeah.
But this is the great con that we see, and there's so much deception in this stuff. People just make stuff up, and they make it stick. But something artificial can never be human, but they can make it look that way, and they can fool people into thinking for instance, I'm talking to a real woman when I have a AI girlfriend, because she talks to me, she seems to know me, and she understands my emotions, and she responds in ways that I respond to. So this is such a con job, but nevertheless, it's so dangerous because these mechanistic programs they can convince people that don't understand that they must do what the program says to do.
Yeah, right.
No, you don't need to do that. It's not human. There's no intelligence behind it. It does not have a soul, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, I think it's going to go down in the ages as the biggest con of history.
Yeah, agreed.
It'll also be the most destructive thing in history as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I the other day on Stand Up, I was talking about an article, Conversations with the Dead Through AI. Technology is taking deception to a whole new level. I mean, it's despicable. They talk about, they call them dead bots and ghost bots and that sort of thing, and they make fun of it. But really, you're taking people in a vulnerable situation, and you're saying, well, let's put a face on this bot, and this is your dead father or grandfather. It's really inhumane and horrible, but they are claiming people are going to buy into that they're talking to a deceased relative. You and I both know that is an impossibility. Now we got demonic aspects involved here. So, I think that at the beginning, not too long ago, people were saying that AI is an existential threat to humanity, but no one is putting the brakes on it at all. Some tried. They said, we're going to put the brakes on this, but Patrick, is anybody even trying anymore?
No, I don't think they are. And I think that, in fact, they want to make regulators think that there's some breaks. But the fact is, they all go back to their teams. And they'll work you turkeys, and, get it done, get the project done.
Right.
I think it's going to be just flat. Put the pedal to the metal all the way on this stuff until they get it, and it's going to be as Larry Summers says. And here's a major guy of the Trilateral Commission, an economist to boot, who says there will be basically all labor is going to be replaced. Can anybody understand what he's talking about? He's basically saying we're going to put you all out of work.
Yeah.
And the implication is the only thing is going to be available is going to be what they're going to introduce is universal basic income. Mm-hmm. And basically everybody's going to end up being a slave of the state. Wow. And, it's just inconceivable. And already people are losing their jobs to AI. It's not heralded everywhere right now, but there's lots of people that are being kicked out of the street. In fact, lots of fast food workers, for instance, in California, where they're putting in kiosks to order, and they're bringing in robots to cook the food. Mm. There's basically one manager to run everything, and say we don't need labor now. It's too expensive because they raised the minimum wage so far.
Right.
So hey, we'll just get these AIs in here, and they'll just do a great job for us. Bye.
Well, what did they expect?
There's all the young people and the entry level people. They're all out of a job in California for fast food anyway.
Well, what did they expect? $20 an hour? What company or small business can afford to pay anybody that when they don't even show up half the time to work? I mean, the economy was leveled halfway by COVID, and now it seems like part 2 of the total destruction of the economy as we have known it is well underway. And I want to point out that Altman is the gentleman, is that correct, with his plan for universal basic income. And yes. WorldCoin, it's just digital money. They're going to, I think, open your account and say, here's some digital money. We'll throw that at you to start. Is that the general plan? Right. Is that the plan?
Yeah. This UBI stuff has been around for a long time. Say in the last 6-7 years, there have been tests of UBI around the world, and nobody really understood what was going on with it, I don't think. But the concept of UBI goes back to the 1930s, when technocracy was originally put together by professors at Columbia University. That's what they said would happen because, hey, we're going to be, we're going to run it. We're going to run everything with scientists and engineers, and they're going to squeeze so much efficiency out of the system, make everything work like a Swiss watch, that you won't have to work more than 20 hours a day, or an hour, a week rather.
Right.
And they said, well, what we're going to do is we're going to measure the amount of energy that we put into the economic system. We're going to divide that by the population, and we're going to give everybody an energy script to spell to use to buy things with, based on not supply and demand, but rather on the energy that went into producing those things. For instance, a shirt or a car or whatever. And this was their idea of utopia, basically. So they wanted to put everybody out of work, and then they'll turn around and say, well, you're going to work, but only 20 hours a week, and we'll tell you when where you're going to work, and but we'll give you enough money to make it worth your while. But everybody was basically going to get the same income across the whole economy. This is where we're headed right now.
Wow. I can see that we are headed right now. And I want to just ask you, we have to take a break shortly here. The SWIFT banking system, what is SWIFT, and how does that fit in with this cashless society? Great question.
SWIFT is a new system for clearing payments, international payments, whether it's from a bank to a bank, an individual to a bank, an individual to an individual, etc. However, this is the glue that binds all of these banking entities together so that they can clear payments efficiently across economies.
Okay.
And the interesting thing about the whole SWIFT organization is, as it turns out, that it's owned exclusively by the central banks themselves.
Of course.
It's not a private organization. It's not a government organization, anything else. It's owned by the central banks themselves. They've tried to kind of hide this, it's like the Trilateral Commission. Its commission must be official, whatever. But SWIFT is not smart in that sense. It stands for an acronym, but the idea is to clear all these get through the inconsistencies that will exist between these different central bank digital currencies. This is how they're going to level the field, so they can put it together. And interesting, they also have solved this universal ID system that they want to. Everybody's talking about that on a global basis, but they've already figured out how to make your ID here in this country travel with all that data to wherever it goes in the world, where it actually will it'll create that global ID as it operates. It's an amazing thing that's happened here. While everybody's looking for this universal ID for everybody, they've just done it with SWIFT. By default.
Well, and I think they've had to upgrade SWIFT somewhat to get the transactions that we do every day to turn around much more quickly, because it used to take a couple of days to make everything turn around. So they're updating these systems as we go. Things are changing very rapidly.
Exactly, and they use the terminology a ledger, like in particular a global ledger.
Right.
SWIFT is becoming the accounting system for the central banking system. Where all the central banks will play into it, and basically SWIFT will keep the ledger. Okay. So if somebody makes a transaction here and it affects somebody in Europe, for instance, it's simply just making a ledger entry, say, a debit here and a credit here. That's all has to happen.
Patrick, I gotta have you put the brakes on just for a minute. We have to take a 2-minute break. And we're going to be right back. This is very fascinating. We're talking about the latest cutting-edge technology when it comes to the global banking system. It's not a simple thing, but boy, technology is pulling it all together. So we'll be back in 2 minutes with more.
The sun may be shining right now in Wisconsin, But now until July, inside the Resch Center, it's blizzard season.
Handoff to Terrence Smith to the goal line. Touchdown, Green Bay.
The Green Bay Blizzard are an indoor football team that plays in the IFL and are now excited to become a business underwriter of the Q90FM ministry.
Loading up and throwing deep, and this ball is caught for a touchdown.
Game schedules and more information can be found at greenbayblizzard.com. Green Bay Blizzard, supporting Q90FM. Q90FM presents the Police Lights of Christmas, helping over 70 police departments across Wisconsin.
Each department is going to leave this night with a box full of thousands of dollars worth of gift cards.
Visit lightsofchristmas.us. Police Lights of Christmas, a ministry of Q90FM.
Feedback, questions, and topic suggestions are always appreciated. Email us at comments@standupforthetruth.com.
Welcome back to Stand Up for the Truth for this Thursday, May the 30th. We're running out of May and we're heading towards June. And we have Patrick Wood today, technocracy.news, and I love having him on. He is a wealth of information and really understands how things are working together with this global economy, because again, that's a big thing when it's been nation state for so long, cashing your check at the local bank and knowing everyone, and now this is a global thing. We were just talking about the SWIFT banking system, and I'm anxious to get more information from you, Patrick, because we've made the switch to digital currencies. A lot of countries, at least the developed countries, are almost there. 90% of them are working with it or are already there. But there has to be a ledger. There has to be an accounting in real time of all the transactions in the world because of Revelation 13. So, Patrick, continue on with us with this SWIFT system. What is the ledger that SWIFT encompasses?
Well, to understand this, first off, we have to understand that SWIFT is accomplishing two different things at the same time. For one thing, it's accounting for the currency-based transactions that we are used to.
Okay.
And also, on the other side, it has to deal with the digital world. And so we have these two like parallel systems that are working at the same time, and it's SWIFT is like bridging the gap between these two systems. What's going to happen in the end is the debt-based side of that is going to go away. What we've known in the past is the so-called debt-based system, the economy, etc. Mm-hmm. That's going to go away at some point, and it's going to be the end of debt altogether. What they're going to do, however, is they're going to take and convert everything into an asset-based system, where everything in the world is tokenized as an asset to be, included in this master system. This is an incredible thought. It's hard to get your head around it.
Well, you get,
but the idea is that as assets are stripped away from people, there will be no need for debt. You might remember that Klaus Schwab made the statement that by 2030 you will own nothing, right? Mm-hmm. He didn't just speculate there. I really believes it that you will own nothing. But a day of reckoning is coming where the entire debt-based system is going to be blown up in a million pieces.
Wow.
And the assets of the world are basically going to be claimed by the central bank system and perhaps some of the larger banking institutions like maybe JP Morgan Chase. And these assets will be seized in order to rent them back or lease them back to the people who originally have them. So all of a sudden, there's no need for debt anymore. If you can understand, like for instance, all the houses that have been brought up, but for cash around the country, like people like BlackRock and others, where they buy up blocks of houses and then they rent them back to people who can't get into the market anymore to buy a house because, look around, there's nothing to buy, but I can rent that house over there, pay 50% more for it than I would if I just had a payment. But this will be a leasing type or renting type of a world, And that will mean that all the assets are transferred into an asset-based system versus a debt-based system. This is going to be revolutionary.
Yes, it is.
It means you and me basically are going to be part of the renter society forever until we die.
Yeah.
And if you're lucky to have a job, why, that would be great. But if you don't, which AI doesn't want you to have a job, if you don't have a job, you'll get some type of universal basic income.
Okay.
And
wow, what a pre-apocalyptic nightmare. I don't believe in post-apocalyptic films because if it's apocalypse, that doesn't make any sense. But what a nightmare. And this feeds into the 15-minute cities, too, where you'll be completely controlled. And it actually really, Patrick, puts a 3D element to you will own nothing and be happy. I just thought that was just a clever platitude that these elitists, came up with. But no, you're saying that actually is prophetic, I guess, quote unquote, for lack of a better word.
It is. And even for instance, in a 15-minute city, in any city really, how many people within a dense city own anything really? They're not typically, you don't have single family homes. You usually don't have condos because, except for the rich people. People that live in a city that live in apartments. They're rented. They're all rented. And everything else, if they have a car, it's going to be a rental car. Or it may be temporary, like you have to take a trip and you rent a car and you come back and turn it in. Basically, you can live in a city based on renting things, right? That's the model. That's the model going forward here. And, of course, people in that condition are malleable and they can be controlled because they have no tie to ownership. Right, so they can be nudged this way, that way. So, for instance, if they raise the rent in your place, you're going to move all of a sudden because you can't afford it. They'll force you to move to where they want you to move, and you'll have no say about it.
Yeah.
This is the idea of scientific dictatorship. In the end, this is going to be an asset-based system where they own all assets. And we will own virtually no assets.
Interesting. In one of your articles from March 28th, this is the proposed trilateral world government: totalitarian, repressive, self-serving, for them, subversive, and secretive. And I think, we've sort of marveled that they seem to be letting some information out of the bag from time to time of what they want us to know. But you maintain that it's still very, very secretive. There's still a lot of censorship. And so this is planned, right? When they tell you what they're doing, but they're not telling you everything, obviously. What do you think about that?
Well, they haven't told everybody everything ever since the beginning.
Yeah, right.
We had to dig it out, literally, of them back in the 70s. And, however, there was enough information that we could get out of them that we discovered exactly what they were doing. And we wrote about it. So there you go.
Yeah.
But it takes research and persistence to draw out their writings and see what it says. When you, for instance, if you read Larry Summers' treatises on economics, you'll see a lot of stuff appear that's pure trilateral policy. But who wants to read Larry Summers, especially about economic theories, right? Nobody wants to do that. I didn't want to do it. Sutton, my co-author, Anthony Sutton, he loved that stuff because he was an economist, professor of economics. So, but basically nobody wants to look at what these people are doing, and they're boring. Their stuff is dry. It's academic in nature. who cares? That's the attitude most people have.
And they are counting on that, actually.
Oh, absolutely.
And as we talk about this, I kind of want to weave in a little bit about depopulation because you have an article here from May 29th. Globalists aim to peacefully depopulate 6 billion people from the planet. Now, if you do a Google search on that subject, you're going to find stories almost exclusively on the declining birth rate around the world, and they are not going to dive into what you and I are going to dive into. But to peacefully depopulate 6 billion, an equitable way is what they talk about. Because the Club of Rome had a book back in the 70s, Limits to Growth, and people didn't take that seriously. But we're talking about climate change. There are 21 major cities around the world without enough water for people to drink. They're saying Mexico City is going to run out of water in June of this year. I think this is also planned obsolescence of the human race. But one of the latest calls for genocide came from Dennis Meadows of the Club of Rome. He said in no uncertain terms what the globalist plan for the world would be. And he says, we want to have freedom and we want to have high standards, so we're going to have 1 billion people. We're now at 7. We got to get back down. But it'll be slow. It can be done in a way that is relatively equal. So there's a good way to get rid of 6 billion people, Patrick?
That's right. In their mind, yeah.
Wow.
This pipe dream has been around since the late 60s at least. And when you consider that the Club of Rome was instituted, originally created in Rome, in Italy. It was at one of the villas that was owned by David Rockefeller.
Of course,
he was part and parcel of the Club of Rome in the first place, and that was one of the major doctrines, I believe, that flavored the initial Trilateral Commission, and they've harbored this thought all these years secretly, and now we see it coming out more vocally, right? And you remember those? I think it was about 2 years ago that the so-called Georgia Guidestones were blown up by somebody.
We still don't know, do we?
God bless them, whoever it was. You might remember that the Georgia Guidestones were predicting that the population would be as I think 500 million. And everybody laughed at it, and said, "Oh, that's ridiculous," whatever. But hey, listen, these people are serious, and they want to reduce the population. And now we see all of a sudden we start to see stories about the declining demographics all over the world.
Yeah,
and right now it's in a nosedive, where the replacement rate is falling below the rate necessary to maintain a population, which means the population is going to crater. And if you add on top of that things like the excess deaths or being attributed to the so-called vaccines,
right?
You can see the pressure to reduce human life on planet Earth. And at this point, where will it lead? Well, we still have a lot of people here, but in these people's minds, that if they can take it over everything in the world, and I have to say, you are a resource to them. They believe we are the resources also of the world, like the cattle. Reducing the population of the herd,
right,
became, all of a sudden is manageable to them. It's like, well, it's crazy stuff. I realize, but this is totally satanic. Totally.
Well, and I would have thought it was relatively crazy until you see that soft kill of the vaccine, and you think, that was just step one, I'm guessing. It was so hard to wrap our heads around that, because you don't think of that kind of evil as human beings who are just sort of trying to survive, from birth to death. And you don't think, I think that's why a lot of people never thought it could be what it was when people were saying, now wait a minute, don't take that. And people were saying, oh, come on, really? I understand that. I understand that you don't want to assign that level of evil to humans, but this article connects a lot of dots. We want to do it peacefully and equitably, and I think the vax was round one. I don't know what's next, but they're talking climate vaccines, not a vaccine that will protect you from the climate. This is something different. It's a strange catchphrase, but they're saying climate change exacerbates the spread of infectious diseases, and vaccines, because they improve the lives of people, they, i.e., therefore, ergo, they protect the planet. And one particular health executive said, vaccines are a golden thread that runs throughout the Sustainable Development Goals. Bingo, there we go. And that climate change creates superbugs. And so vaccines are going to halt all that. That's a bunch of gibberish, isn't it, Patrick?
It really is. It's just doublethink.
Yeah, it is.
We have to address a new concept called One Health.
Yes.
Which is a new doctrine. We see it in this current treaty, the World Health Organization treaty, and we see it in our own government, where the FDA, the USDA, all these agencies, three or four letter agencies, have websites dedicated to this One Health concept. This is a paganistic, occultic doctrine that basically wraps everything in the universe, at least in the world, into one tidy thing. And what they're claiming is that everything in the world is related to each other, including the bacteria and the ecosystem, and then the animals, and then finally the humans after that. So these people, the One Health policy is basically saying we're going to control all this stuff from cradle to grave, because if a bacteria jumps to an animal, jumps to a human, boy, we need to stop that process in the beginning. Well, this whole idea is totally. It's not really pantheistic. What's the word?
Pantheistic.
Right.
Yeah, pantheistic.
Yeah, exactly. This is a crazy idea that is religious in nature,
yeah.
And nevertheless, they're using this as a rationale to control everything from cradle to grave.
Right.
Again, this is a crazy thing that nobody would have expected. It just happened over the last 20 years. Nobody really saw it, getting embedded in our government. But this was introduced by people probably like, Club of Rome type thinking, about 20 years ago in our government. And all of a sudden, I look around and see it everywhere. Say, holy mackerel! How did we get this stuff? Who did this? Well, it's here.
It is,
and it's absolutely insane. But this is the way they're going to monitor human health forever, using, for instance, the cattle, the birds, and whatever, the sheep, the pigs, to tell us, to warn us. Well, hey, it's all coming. It's going to be swine flu, is going to be bird flu or whatever. And they're manufacturing this stuff, making it up as they go.
Yeah, they are. And this One Health initiative is a CDC platform in this country. So it's run by the government, and other nations have adopted it as their own guidelines. They're using this platform. African nations, many of them, the WHO, the G20, multiple federal agencies. So this is not one small little thing. You may hear it, people may hear it in context of our own country. No, this is a global initiative, a new, actually state-mandated religion is what I'm thinking here.
It is.
I wish I could, Patrick, I wish I could be vaccinated against these elitists, but it doesn't work that way.
Now, there is a vaccine that would sell.
Yeah, boy, you got that. But it's also interconnected, and this fascinates me because it points to Revelation, because the mark is connected to worship, which is connected to the global government, which is connected to economics. This was inevitable, but I never saw these verses in Revelation as so prophetic to what you and I are talking about today. It's just mind-boggling. And then there's the Gaia spirit and scientists and following the science. Patrick, this is all the tentacles are everywhere.
Exactly. Wow. Yeah, there really is. And It's going to get more pronounced as time goes on, I'm sure, because as they reveal their true nature, Christians especially are going to get, they'll see it, of course. Most people in the world won't have a clue.
Yeah. And they don't, and they will continue to not have a clue.
Yes.
Also, NPR, the Global Pandemic Treaty, they did not meet their deadline. NPR talked about that. They're still working on certain things. On Friday, the director of the World Health Organization announced that the negotiators couldn't find a consensus in time for the assembly that starts next week. That's not going to stop them, is it?
No, not at all. It never intended to, stop them. No matter what, they're going to do this. And they've broken all of their rules along the way. There's a ton of things that have been violated in their own rule book. They cast it all aside and say, you know what, we're just going to proceed. Whatever we can get, that's what we're going to get. And I'll tell you one thing that will survive all of the cuts will be this One Health idea. That's going to stay right in the core of it. And as long as that, even if that was the only thing that they ever included in it, that would be enough.
Right.
Because they could get all the nations of the world to sign on to it. And there you go. This idea of earth worship, Gaianism it's called. This is the core of this whole thing, the worship of the earth. However, it's interesting to see at some point in the future, during the tribulation especially, the worship of the earth it'll be redirected to the Antichrist himself.
Right.
All of this worship of the earth is going to go away, and they will instead they will worship the one who has created this new earth, so to speak, with AI and other things we're talking about here, right?
Wow.
The one that they will see as the creator. He will demand, I did all this, so you need to worship me now. And then it'll be Katie bar the door, so to speak.
Well, yeah, this global religion, this groundwork is just the beginning, and he's going to toss that out the door at some point. Because at Revelation 17, we have a harlot. That's a metaphor for a false religion. There's a false prophet on the scene at that time. The Antichrist will then demand worship. He'll cast her aside, and so the Bible actually does talk about that step-by-step approach. We have the harlot, and then we get to the Antichrist hating the woman. So as we get closer, Patrick, it just seems like these things become clearer and clearer and clearer. And it's you have an article, the link between Global One Health Initiative, Gaia Worship, and Technocracy, and that's on your site, technocracy.news. Highly recommend that if people want to catch up on this and dive a little deeper. We have just a few minutes left. You have an article on the front page, You Shall Not Surely Die, Transhuman Scientists Buy into the Devil's First Lie. And you talk about something called longevity escape velocity. What in the world is that? It sounds very sci-fi.
These people are just grasping at straws. They've never got anywhere close to their goal of getting rid of death. But they view death as a disease, right?
Sure.
So, hey, we're in the business of conquering disease. Well, when they have no results for a period of time, they have to come up with a new thing, right? And to get people excited again, especially get the money floating into them. This idea of a moonshot or the longevity escape velocity, holy mackerel!
Yeah. These
people are so unplugged. They're basically counting on miracles to bail them out. They have no proof, no way to go with their science. So they just make stuff up now.
Wow. Well, to say that we'll never age, you have to factor in time, because as time goes on, that, the default position in this world is sin and decay. How are they? You got to reverse the curse, Patrick, is what I'm thinking. If you're going to say we can take a slingshot around the moon or whatever it is they're saying, I think that was a Star Trek thing. You go slingshot around the sun, and you'll be back in time. And so I think they've watched way too much sci-fi. This rosy scenario that the anti-aging drugs, the Dublin Longevity Declaration, calling on science to reverse biological aging processes. Oh dear, I think you're right. And maybe people who take this seriously maybe should be marked for depopulation. I don't know.
Maybe so.
Did I say that out loud?
It's interesting. You have to remember these scientists that are working on this stuff. They've never worked in a day in their life at a regular job.
Right. Oh my goodness.
They're thinkers. That's all they are. They're thinkers and tinkerers who get to live in the laboratory essentially, and they're paid for it. But that's really not a job that produces anything, right?
Right. And dealing with aging and time and all that is way above their pay grade. Patrick, we are out of time. I enjoyed this so much. You're just a wealth of information and understanding, and I really appreciate you. Technocracy.news is the site. Thank you so much for being with me today. We got to call it a day, Patrick. Thank you.
My pleasure.
All right. Next week, tomorrow, Jim Fletcher, we're going to talk about the Middle East and probably some things you haven't heard of before. He's an expert on that. He loves Israel as much as anyone does, so we're going to speak with him tomorrow. Pete Garcia Monday, and then Tuesday, Linda and Richard Nathan. Now, I'm just going to tease you here with a subject we have never talked about on Stand Up for the Truth. So join us next week for some very interesting discussion. Therefore, my beloved brethren, be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that your labor is not in vain in the Lord. 1 Corinthians 15:58. Have a great day on purpose.